This is a very important award, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to announce the Momentum Most Inspiring Man of the Year award for 2018. The criteria for this award is a man who has excelled in his chosen field, who is an inspiration to others, who is able to motivate and touch the lives of others, and one who continues to persevere despite setbacks and hardships. And ladies and gentlemen, to present the Most Inspiring Man of the Year award for 2018, let's get Barbara back up to make the presentation. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Barbara's about to make the Most Inspiring Man of the Year award.
Ladies and gentlemen, I need your full attention, please. I'm sure many of you heard the late Robbie Williams quote, who said, "Everyone you meet goes through struggle you know nothing about. So be kind always." We are going to meet a man tonight whose life mission became to promote and campaign for kindness worldwide. He's a man who is trying to change the world, who actually flew specially from United States tonight to be here with us. Now, this is the formal nomination, and the winner has been initially nominated by Mr. George Helou. George, thanks once again for this magic introduction. The Momentum Most Inspiring Man of the Year 2018 is Michael Lloyd-White. Michael is the founder and chair of World Kindness Australia and chief advisor to the board of World Kindness USA. Based in Sydney, in his capacity, he has engaged 210 schools, 70,000 students, and 140,000 parents as founding members. In 2012, Michael was appointed secretary of the peak global body of World Kindness Movement, known as WKM. Under his leadership, the organization received messages, support, and endorsement from around the world, including Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, state premiers, and the Australian Commissioner for Human Rights. In 2017, Mr. Lloyd-White chaired the 20th anniversary and the 9th General Assembly and delivered in Seoul and delivered Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull's message, where a declaration of support for a kinder world was signed and presented at the Korean demilitarized zone. For almost a decade, Mr. Lloyd-White has avidly campaigned internationally to remove myths of kindness, and he's done this all in voluntary capacity. He continues to deliver passionate keynote addresses around the world to engage and inspire on how kind a world can be realized in our lifetime through finding the courage to be kind at the time that the world struggles to be the best it can be. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Michael Lloyd-White, Momentum Most Inspiring Man of the Year 2018.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage a man who is striving for a kinder world in our lifetime, who has flown in from America, literally got here this afternoon to be with us tonight. He is the Momentum Most Inspiring Man of the Year for 2018, Mr. Michael Lloyd-White, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is.
It's unexpected to say the very least. And I just want to be clear that I didn't choose to do this. There wasn't some devastating event in my life. My life was pretty good until I started doing this. And it seemed like the universe conspired in one way to throw up hurdles, giving me every reason not to do this. But just to give you an example, it started at a school playground. We were new parents at a school, and Russell Crowe's children were in my daughter's class. Now, that's got nothing to do with the story. I'm just blatantly name-dropping. But to give you an idea of the school in the eastern suburbs, and what had happened is a lot of things happened, but one thing that happened that made me realise something needs to be done was that we made a clown cry at a fundraiser. I don't think that's happened here yet, but no, and I thought that needed to be addressed with the P&C, the parent body. But I knew that apart from handing over the $13,000 cheque that we raised for them, I knew that I could put at risk something that we all cherish, something the kids cherish. They might call it popularity, but we call it a sense of belonging. And it's that sense of belonging that can see us seek the safety of silence. You know, they talk about bullying. You know, you have a bully, you have a victim, but there's a silent majority, isn't there? And that's okay. I'm not pointing the finger at anyone. I'm just saying that in a world that has become gripped by fear, we need to find our courage, and it's been mentioned this evening. And I get that men don't necessarily get the mission of kindness. I get that it's mistaken for weakness, and I get that it's seen as primarily gender specific. But I want you to take this home and think about it. How are you going to combat the most successful campaign in the world that is in the 24/7 news cycle and even captures those people that oppose it? And some people might say with love. And that's great if you're an enlightened soul and you can be walking around with your chest open waiting for your heart to be ripped out and kicked to the curb. But most of us are guarded. And to actually love, you've got to be vulnerable. And to be vulnerable, that requires courage. And I don't think that there is any act of courage that is not tempered with kindness at some point, simply because authentic kindness and courage are selfless. And I'm not talking about the pay-it-forward coffees or sugar and spice and all things nice, hearts and flowers. That's not the kindness campaign that we've been taking around the world. And this isn't the first time, but I can tell you right now, we've achieved a tremendous amount in an incredibly short time, not just here in Australia, but overseas. And there's so many good people that are waiting to be woken up, to become agents for positive change. And we just forget. The last time I was at a dinner like this, it was a women's college. And I can tell you how this campaign will change you as it has changed me. And I wasn't a bad guy. I was just, my life was good. But I realised that change when I'm at this dinner, 300 young ladies, 18 to 23 at the women's college. And they were talking and laughing and, I'm one of two men in the entire room, and it was deafening. And they're all getting awards of some kind for kindness, and I was quite, I could have been consumed by all the attention that I was getting. But how it changed me was that I wasn't drawn to all that attention from these young women. I was drawn to the stillness and the silence of a young girl on our table about 5 deep down. And she was busy. She was preoccupied being preoccupied. You know what I mean? Focusing on a meal, looking at the ceiling, looking at a watch. And for 15 minutes at this formal kindness dinner, Not only did no one speak to her, no one even looked at her. And you've got to ask the question, would I have seen her had I not been mindful, if I didn't have kindness on my agenda? But here's the thing. What happens is I found that my bandwidth increases, your radar goes on, and all of a sudden you begin to see the unseen. You begin to see the things that were always there but nobody saw. And not only do you see them, you're compelled. You're compelled to do something, because it takes a few things to reach doing kindness. You need the empathy. So you need to know, I understand how that person feels. And at some point, that understanding needs to connect with the corazon, needs to connect with your heart. And most of us can do that relatively easily. But the thing that we struggle to do is to take that next leap, that path of most resistance, because kindness is a verb. To actually go and do something, not for a friend, maybe even for somebody who you don't know or don't even like, but you do it just because it's the right thing to do. So when I saw this girl, wouldn't it have been great if somebody had have gone up to her and used the most powerful word in our language to break loneliness? And that word, of course, I'm sure you're all familiar with, is hello. But how many times are we afraid to put our personal brand at risk because they don't quite fit into our social scene? It's all about the personal brand. It's all about protecting your brand. And here's the thing. When we delivered Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull's message in Seoul on the 3rd of September, check the dates, that was the exact same time the North Koreans gave a nuclear response a few miles away to the threat of fire and fury. The alarms on our phones went off and told us to familiarise ourselves with the shelter. And I asked them to understand that what just happened outside, there's nothing we can do. People were nervous, people were frightened. I said, but if we allow that to derail this, because I don't think that was a test of nuclear devastation, I think that was a test of a campaign of fear and hate versus the campaign of the courage to be kind. And to their credit, they stayed and we continued. And as a result, city of Gold Coast became the first city in the world to be listed as a World Kindness City, and a kindness clause was adopted. And I chose to stand down as the Secretary General specifically to take on a much bigger role, and that role is to bridge the divide in the United States. Because I think if anyone can do it, an Australian can. They like our accent, apparently. But going back to that young girl in that dining hall, I wonder what would have happened if somebody had gone up to her and said hello and invited her back in. What would have happened when she goes back to her room? Maybe she'll text her mum, and maybe she'll say, "You'll never guess who said hello to me today." Because I can tell you now, we've got inclusivity in everything. It's like furniture. You don't notice it, but it's in a document because it's a good value to have. But you don't get it. And you'll never really get inclusivity unless you really do a deep dive on the power of exclusion. Because we've been doing it for eons. Since man had fire, if the chief doesn't like you, you're banished. If the country doesn't like you and you're the emperor, you're exiled. If the church doesn't like you, you're excommunicated. If the family doesn't like you, you're disowned, and that's great. Expelled, discharged, we just name it. And eventually, you don't toe the line, you don't pull your weight, you don't do the right thing by a community, we'll whack you in jail. But if you're a really resilient, hardened, drug-dealing rapist and you still don't get it, we know how to do your head in. And that is, we'll put you in solitary. Because that will get you eventually, no matter how tough you are, being alone. But that's not where it starts, ladies and gentlemen. It starts with the words, "You can't play with us." It's a little girl or a little boy that goes home to their mum and dad and says, "What's wrong with me?" Why don't I have any friends? Why doesn't anybody want to play with me? And if this campaign is this much successful, when that time comes in a playground, there'll be a voice that relinquishes the safety of silence, finds the courage to be kind and speaks up and says, yes, she can. So don't underestimate kindness. It's not gender specific. We received a scholarship from the University of Sydney, a sporting scholarship for kindness, because they were having so many problems in the sport at the uni games with inappropriate behaviour, hazing, sexual assault, you name it. And you've got to ask yourself, what does a kinder world look like? But that's an easy thing to work out. Ask yourself, what does a world with zero kindness look like? And this is going to be a wake-up call for you. There is no kindness. There is no kind family. There is no community services. There is no Barbara McNaught. There is nada, nothing. And if you're unlucky enough and a child is born into that world, how long would she or he survive? In a world that has become all about self, they would be just left on the slab. And I can tell you right now, if this world doesn't have kindness, the species will end within a generation. But that sports scholarship, and sometimes I'm a little bit confronting, but this isn't about demeaning a particular code. It's not about demeaning anyone. It's an observation. And you need to have a look at yourself. You need to have a look at the village that raises the child. That's our village, right? The village that raises the child is the same village that is responsible for it when the child is abused. Now, our legends on the field, these young men, these sporting heroes, are potential role models for our children, yeah? Now, some of them are partners to women. Some of them are husbands to women. Some of them are brothers to women, but all of them are sons to women. So explain to me why it is when we go on tour, because we know what happens on tour, because it stays on Facebook, right? So what happens on tour when these young men, these legends, find themselves in a pack mentality inside a motel room with one or two consensual, maybe, under the influence, maybe, women? And ask yourself, why is it not one of them can stand up and say, is this the best we can be? That sense of belonging isn't just about being a bystander in a playground, because our best and bravest, those that choose to serve in the Defence Force, and remember, this is not an indictment. This is just an observation, because we are all flawed. We're all a work in progress. That's why they say practice kindness. We never get it right. But our best and bravest that are prepared to take a bullet to serve us for generations, sought the safety of silence to protect a brand, whilst their own were being raped, beaten, humiliated, bullied. And the best of us sought silence. And God forbid you decided to speak up, they'll circle the wagons and they'll cast you out. And that's got to stop. We've got to find those people that have that courage. You know, when you're at a table and someone's speaking and you're knowing what they're saying is inappropriate. You're here tonight for mental health. How many people reflect? How many people think, oh, that's not very appropriate? And it's a really simple thing. And I give my daughters a hard time. They're now 14 and 16. And I say, you know, I just ask them, is this the best we can be? And what if she says yes, Dad? Really? You're peaking at 14? That's a worry. But it is shifting. The movement's grown. The first thing we did when we got involved, and that wasn't by choice, that just one thing led to another. Like, on our bucket list was China. China had never been involved in the movement. The movement goes back to 97, but its roots go back to the 64 Olympics in Japan. But Kevin Rudd, in the middle of his second election, was kind enough to provide a letter of support for us to present to the Chinese. And to his credit, he didn't take any. He didn't take any credit for that. And as a result of a lot of trips to China and talking to a lot of people, we were able to get kindness on the agenda, and World Kindness China was formed and joined the campaign for the first time. And here's the thing, the largest education body in the world, the Chinese Ministry of Education, now has kindness curriculum in their classroom. So what do you think that will look like in a few years? And do you know where that was developed? No, it was developed in the US, because that's where I told them they should go. That's where they had kindness curriculum. You do a word search on NAPLAN for the word kindness, you'll get 0 hits. You do a word search on your own websites for the word kindness, you'll find mindfulness, you'll find well-being, you'll find wellness. But you won't find kindness simply because someone decided it was too inconvenient. Someone misinterpreted it as vague, warm and fluffy. Well, look at me. I am not vague, warm or fluffy. I'm the last person you would expect that would be promoting kindness. But when you actually think about it and you get down to it, it's something that is absolutely essential in us. And I don't know how much time she's going to give me because she's been very generous. But I think I've spoken long enough. And I'll say thank you very much, Barbara. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'm here all night.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for the most inspiring man of the year 2018. Michael, we're very lucky. We're going to hear more from you on our Hello Darling interview that we're recording on Monday, which will be broadcasted soon. Michael Lloyd-White has been awarded you received a membership for the West Australian Club, which gives you access all over the world to their beautiful venues and facilities. The West Australian Club celebrated 125th anniversary. Cara, am I right? I didn't hear. And you hear more about. Thank you. Generosity of the West Australian Club.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
When do I give you your certificate of membership? I've got that.